Well, good afternoon. I'm Kristen Clark. I'm the president at West Hills College Lemoore. I trust you enjoyed that incredible lunch. The food is always so great here. And obviously the opportunity to network with each other, which is an essential part of our essential elements. The series is purposely designed to bring together San Joaquin leaders, business, industry, economic developers, state policy executives, and regulators able to influence an unprecedented joint venture to chart future directions of career and technical education programs. The event aligns perfectly with a series of regional, state, and federal initiatives, including credentialing innovations, regional mapping, prior learning assessment, strong workforce, and doing what matters workforce recommendations for next generation jobs. This event enables us to ask questions such as, what are the best choices for community college coursework for sustainable employment and advanced degrees? What are our strategies to position employers as drivers of workforce training programs? What are the roles of educators and employers of state and regional organizations? And what will the region's strong workforce plan entail? This afternoon's regional collaboration sessions are ideal settings to find the best answers to these questions. I'm delighted to welcome back Carrie to the podium and our co-facilitator, Rob Murray of J.M. Keene Consulting, to launch our first collaboration session. Carrie and Rob, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much. So I'm glad to be here today, and I'm excited to have you all here today too, because I'm really looking forward to input that you're going to be providing in just a few moments, because that's really what it's all about, is hearing from you and how we can be doing things better and stronger within our region. So first, for those of you that are not familiar with what the Central Motherlode Regional Consortium is, we serve to facilitate and promote effective regional and educational initiatives on behalf of the California Community Chancellor's Office with our 14-member colleges, and I'll go over who those are in a minute. You know, our goals of our Motherlode are really to strengthen communication, coordination, and timely decision-making in relationship to labor market demands. So with that today, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of an overview of who we are. So the Central Motherlode region is one of 7 regions within the state of California that were constructed under the Doing What Matters for Jobs in the Economy. We have, within our region, it is one of the biggest, with the biggest geography. We have 8 districts, community college districts, and 14 community colleges. So we range as far as Columbia College in the north and Saracosa to the south. We have a combined enrollment of full-time equivalent students of over 100,000. As part of what was Doing What Matters at the Chancellor's Office, they identified 10 priority industry sectors that they then assigned what is called sector navigators, or their industry experts, and then deputy sector navigators. And the deputy sector navigators help facilitate within the region. So within our region, we have either technical assistant providers or deputy sector navigators for 8 of the 10 sector areas. So as you'll see, we advanced manufacturing, ag, water, and environmental technology, energy efficiency, construction, health, information and technology, ICT, global trade and logistics, small business, and retail, hospitality, and tourism. Our 3 main priority sectors for this area are health, the ag, and the advanced manufacturing. This came about, as what you kind of heard, I think Jim allude to earlier, was a result of the town hall meetings that were conducted about a year and a half ago that were held throughout the state to provide input on how we could be doing things better. And as a result, the Strong Workforce Task Program came up with 25 recommendations on how we can be doing things better. Those recommendations were then subsequently adopted by the Board of Governors And then with this governor's support, the state governor's support, Governor Brown, they were funded via a trailer bill that was adopted and approved earlier this summer, with $200 million to go towards programs for CTE-related, career technical-related programs at the community colleges. Let's see. So the money that was put aside for the Strong Workforce Program, the $200 million, is for better and more CTE programs that is supported by labor market demand. For our region, we got $19.4 million towards that. Now, they had devised a formula that the amount of money that we got for this area was based on three factors. Actually, the formulas throughout the state was based on a third of it was job openings, a third was a full-time equivalent CTE students, and a third of them was the unemployment rate. They are providing us with 4 years of funding that will have 30 months cycle to spend each of those monies. And it will, in subsequent years, there is additional factor that will be considered in how those forming allocations will be measured. So in addition to the three I mentioned, they'll also be looking at the successful work outcomes. So 1/6 will be successful work outcomes, and the 1/6 job openings. And then again, full-time equivalent students in CTE areas and the unemployment rate. The fiscal agent for the statewide, for the Strong Workforce Program funding for the Central Motherlode region is the State Center Community College District. And again, it's for more and better CTE programs. So the main purpose of the regional planning and the stakeholder meetings that we've been having, we've had three kind of sub-regional meetings. We had one in Bakersfield, we had one in Clovis, and we had one in Stockton. We have an abbreviated one here today, and then we'll have one more abbreviated one in Modesto, is really to hear input of what you feel and you perceive what we need to be doing better, and to see how we can make those partnerships with our stakeholders. The Strong Workforce Program mandated that we needed to work with stakeholders that some of us have been doing in some of the colleges areas, but there's always room for improvement, and some of the colleges probably have not yet tapped some of their strategic partners, and those include adult ed education, K through 12 partners, workforce development, four-year colleges that want to participate in industry partners as well. So to go through what the purpose is to align CT courses, programs, and pathways within regional economy needs. And those alignment areas include sector strategies, career pathways, regional partnerships, and then workforce development systems where we're leveraging the efforts of our stakeholder partners. Now, we are also to close the labor market and employment gaps and avoid duplication and streamline access. And what that means in this context for duplication is really means if a student starts at college A in MEC-Ag, that if he transfers to college B in MEC-Ag, that he's not going to have to retake the classes that he took at that first college because they'll be similar in what the standards were for those colleges, for those classes. So right now we're at the engaging stakeholders point. And we are working with all of you and our community college stakeholders as well to provide us some direction and input. So in order to develop a plan for our region, community colleges are working with their local dollars, Strong Workforce Program dollars, to develop new programs or increase the size of their programs for more and better CTE in response to labor market data. Those monies have gone directly to those colleges for those plans. For the regional portion, the project plans will be coming to the steering committee to review to make sure we're hitting the rubrics that we need to meet per the legislation. And then there will also be an overall plan for the region that really is a summary of the input that has been received and really kind of lays the future groundwork for the future years and how we're going to be adapting and adjusting to those priorities in the area. It's also to see, are we missing priorities in this area? There's not a requirement that it has to be within the sectors that we have right now, but if there are other sectors that we see are missing or needing to put some resources towards. If labor market data supports that, we're able to go into those areas. So in an effort, hopefully we'll be more responsive to some of those needs that maybe we're not currently filling. We also have to set measurable goals, and those goals are aligned with the WIOA metrics. And those goals include enrollments, completion, transfer, employment rates, employment in field of study, earnings, median change in income, and proportion of students who obtained a living wage. So we're really wanting to be able to get to some of that level that Jim was referring to earlier on really being able to have a livable wage income where folks can then support themselves. Okay, so at this time, I'm going to ask Rob Murray to come up. He's with J.M. King Consulting, and they're working with us on helping us kind of summarize the information that's been received to date, and he's going to provide you with the feedback that we've received to date from the three programs, from the three stakeholder meetings that we've had.
You'll be seeing in just a few minutes some of these questions and have your own chance to provide input to them, but we thought it would be a good idea to give everyone an overview of how the responses are shaping up to this point. And so one of the questions is, having ID'd the priority sectors and the emerging sectors, just what do people feel is not being accounted for right now? And of course, with a question like that, we've gotten a range of responses, but what we're seeing are a lot of people identifying the public safety, legal and corrections field, the automotive and transportation logistics fields, and construction as sectors that, of course this is in addition to many other sectors identified, but just in terms of the weight of repetition, just the number of responses that we're getting, obviously seeing a lot of people just reaching out and telling us that might be something that is not being fully accounted for right now. And then as far as who are we getting these responses from, about 45% of all of the responses so far identify as being involved in community college education or workforce development. A further 42%, which means adding up all of that, you're getting about 7/8 of all responders, but further 42% are coming from the manufacturing industry, health industry, agriculture industry, and then either K-12 education or adult ed or other education. So then, as far as a question then asking for those in industry, what support is being currently offered in the form of internships or apprenticeships to CTE education? Right now, currently, over 3/4 of respondees indicate that whom they're with currently offers either internships or apprenticeships, and then of the remaining portion, about half of that remainder say they have plans to begin offering those programs within the next 3 years. Hey, and now we have a couple of questions that are interesting because they're really open-ended and you've gotten just an amazing array of responses. And so one is, what sort of certifications are required in your field that you need workers in that field to have coming in? And I've grouped these really into the categories of sectors. And so one of the biggest ones is various things in computer use, programming, software familiarity, and technical ability. And then you also have just a lot of specific agriculture and manufacturing certifications. Obviously, anything in the healthcare industry, you have a lot of specific healthcare certifications that those employees need. And then one, and this is going to tap into something that's going to also be a recurring theme that we mention a lot, but the kind of the career tech business management, but then that also includes not just things like management and sales training, but I think gets into the idea of a lot of the soft skills that employers are really wanting students to come out having a good foundation in. And then finally, we have just a open question for recommendations for new programs. And again, grouping these by major categories, there seems to be a lot of interest in new programs in manufacturing, in health and human services, in agriculture, and in public safety and corrections. These are just the areas that we see being brought up consistently in different venues by different types of responders, just over and over again. And then we also had some table questions that we encouraged the groups to sit down together, talk to each other, and then to report out and tell us what they arrived at in their own smaller groups, and then have a bigger conversation with the whole panel, or not panel, but the whole room about some of these topics. And so, asking people if they feel in their experience, like the labor market data that was part of some of these presentations, was accurately describing the conditions that they were seeing in real life, day to day where they are. A lot of the respondents thought that they did, but we also got a list of sectors that they felt were kind of not missing from that report. They also gave us a lot of instances of, for example, small business, entrepreneurs, gig jobs, very significant factor in the economy not really being captured in that. Of course, the categorization of certain jobs in certain fields, open to interpretation, especially with a lot of tech jobs. You're going to have a big capacity for just people not quite understanding what those are and categorizing them inconsistently from time to time. And then following up, and similar to that, asking people if the industry sector data that we provided them to look over included their business, and if it didn't, to identify that, and also just what were the most relevant sectors in their region and their industry. So again, we get a lot of healthcare, agriculture, manufacturing, transportation, logistics, energy tech, public safety. We're seeing a definite common theme of the kinds of responses that we get from this. But healthcare, agriculture, manufacturing, public safety seem to be where we're getting a lot of response. Now, some interesting questions that we get to next, just saying, what more must be done for students to move through the region's career pathways and enter successfully into the workforce? And what are the main skills that students need in order to be successful in your business? And here's where I mentioned it just a minute ago, overwhelmingly, what we're hearing about are soft skills. Students need to be able to communicate, they need to be able to write, to resolve conflict without it becoming something that always elevates up to involve upper management. And then also, of course, really IDing a need for just more opportunities for students to have job shadowing, apprenticeships, internships, just where they're getting more of that real experience before formally entering into the workforce. So another question then, and so I realize I'm without visuals, a lot of this is maybe a little hard to follow, but you'll be seeing and having your own chance to formulate some responses to some of these. But another question is just what types of classes would help these students and employees who have a chance to further their own education the most? And here, more is better. Whatever kinds of options you can recommend, of course there's a potential for some kind of students to benefit from that, and then whatever else you can offer that's beyond what we can suggest. So weekend classes, boot camps, distance learning, online courses offered simultaneously by multiple colleges. You can just get an incredible array of people coming up with a lot of innovative ideas. It's just potential to just bring more students into the opportunity. And then how can industry and partners inform and co-invest in CTE development? And here's where there's a lot of advocacy for the creation of more formal partnerships between specific industry figures and some of the school programs. And this is the kind of thing that can facilitate those internships, facilitate those various work-based learning programs. And then just some other ideas, particularly in some of the medical fields and the high need jobs, maybe having some of the hospitals help fund cohorts to pursue certain degrees if they really have a need for those jobs, just to provide equipment and training for some of those fields. Just these are some of the responses that we've been getting. And then at the end of these sessions, we usually are just having open conversation. And so just a few of the key things that we've kind of distilled out from a lot of those conversations. So one of the big ones is acknowledging that colleges are not always as successful as they could be trying to engage business to come in and be partners in this. And so in this case, utilizing chambers of commerce or professional organizations such as the SHRM for human resource managers to engage businesses that they know on behalf of the colleges and just build up more of these connections that the colleges are trying but not always succeeding in maintaining for themselves. So that, I know, covers a lot of the ground that we've received input from, and I'll have Carrie come back up to get us into the next part.
Okay, so we wanted to just kind of provide you an overview of a summary of the input we've received to date, and really now I want to hear from you. So, on your tables there was a couple sheets that were passed out earlier this morning. One of them is how to get a hold of myself or any of the other key talent from the Chancellor's office in our region, so that if you need us, please feel free to call us. If you have posts after this meeting, if there's things you want to follow up on, please call and reach out. I would be glad to talk to you. I'd love to hear from you. But what I want you to do right now, there's also a sheet that says polling feedback directions, and then there's table discussion feedback. So for this next exercise, and this will actually record your input. So I get to take what you put up here today, I can download it, and it'll be incorporated to the other feedback that we've received today. So on your cell phone, you're going to the 2 number, you're going to do 37607. And these directions are also on your sheet of paper. And then in the text message area, it's Carrie Hammers, K-A-R-R-I-H-A-M-M-E-R-S 745. And then you're going to hit send. And it should give you a message that says you've connected. I'll kind of look, when you're done, if you look up, that would let me know. Actually, it said it's ready. Okay, so in Group A, actually what you had is you have the sector areas that we currently have: advanced manufacturing, ag, water, and environment technology, health, ICT, digital media, retail, hospitality, and tourism, small business, and global trade and logistics, and then energy efficiency and utilities, which is Prop 39. So what you're going to do, it says it's waiting for your reason. You're going to type in, oh, I'm sorry, this isn't open-ended. So what are we missing? So go ahead and just type in your message area. What are some sectors do you think that we're missing? Sector or program area that maybe that you've not seen either in those sector priority areas or that you think that we should be adding. So you put into your message area, you type what you want, and then hit send. Actually, it says it's waiting for your responses. So I don't know. It says it's okay, there we go. So as this is, it's a word cloud, and if things are repeated, those words will get bigger. Okay. All right, did everybody get a chance to answer that that wanted to? Okay. All right. We're going to go on to the next question. Thank you. So for the next question, we've got, what best describes your industry, sector, institution, or organization? Of the hat you're wearing today, and you're going to answer A, B, C, D through N. You've got manufacturing, agriculture, health, community college education, K-12, adult ed, workforce development, ICT digital media, retail hospitality, tourism, small business, global trade logistics, energy, nonprofit and NGO, or other. Now we've got a few more out there. All right. I like it. Okay, we're going to go on to the next question now. Thank you for that. This will also be an A, B, C, or D. Or E is does your organization or college support career technical education by currently offering internships to students or trainees, planning to offer internships in the next 3 years, currently offering apprenticeships, planning to offer apprenticeships, organization does not plan to offer them. Should be like a game show type of thing. Yeah. As you're doing that, I was just going to mention, as in yesterday's themes, I'm not from Iowa or Nebraska. I grew up in Southern California, but I do farm here locally. And not all farmers wear boots, so. All right, we are going to move on to the next one. What type of certifications are required prior to employment at your organization? If you're a college, what certifications do you offer? And then add CC to your answer. Okay. And this will be this is also a word cloud, so you just type in what that certification is. Means your time is running out. Hurry. Okay. Has everybody answered that wanted to? Okay, we're going to go. We just have a couple more questions. Okay, what is your recommendation for new and/or expanded programs? And actually on this one, it's just the most recent one that's the largest. It's fast, quickly typing away. Come on. Okay. Did everyone get to put in their response? Because that's our last question for that. All right. Thank you. That's it. So thank you for that. We're going to go on now to our table discussion. So on your tables, you have a sheet of paper that has the Regional Motherlode Regional Consortium on it. There's 3 questions on there, and really what we want to do is spend the next probably 15 minutes at your tables. If you're at just a couple people tables, maybe you can move to, so there's a few more of you. Really would like to see you have a scribe at your table to really provide some feedback and input for at least so that you can give to me. Going to have, if you could have someone out report out from your table, and what I would like to do is at least have one takeaway from each table with your ideas and thoughts. If you also want to turn one in, please feel free to do so. Also, you have a way to, if you want to email me, whatever is the most convenient way for you to provide feedback, I want to make that work for you. So what table would like to go first? Anybody want to go first?
You were the communicator?
And we're going to be taking notes too. We're both going to be taking a series of notes. All right, James.
Yeah, we'll go first.
Thank you.
Check, 1, 2. Oh, yeah.
Jeez.
Ooh, that's powerful. That's powerful. We, in our first question from personal experience, we talked about some of the gaps we've heard about, read about, nursing, teaching, corrections, information technology, and in some places in manufacturing or other kind of niche places, medical assisting. Talked about writing technical manuals, and then tech support specialists or people in careers that are working from home. So those were things that, again, from personal experience that we had heard. What can be done for CTE students to enter successfully into the workforce? We talked about workplace coordinator to facilitate students going into internship opportunities. And so a lot of that work's being done, but we see that as a good way of colleges, once students have completed a CTE program, to connect them to the workforce, to get them into jobs. And then how can industry inform or engage and co-invest in CTE development? We talked, they can help us fund equipment, provide internships, externships, work experience programs, apprenticeships, and then access to equipment for training.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for that? Okay. All right, so the next table.
All right, I'll start on our segment, and you're going to finish the other half, and then it's the other half of the table because they weren't part of our group. So,
Wow.
it's my wife. It's okay. It's good to have a little division. So we started to take a look at we jumped. I think mainly we focused on B and C, and so I'll start on some of my segments, and then Paul will talk about some of his areas we're looking at. I think one of the important factors, and it was said at a regional convening that we went to just the other day, is when industry comes into our rooms, they're not getting paid to be here. Mm-hmm. Where a lot of us in the government, we're getting paid to come in and sit down in these rooms. And so realistically, when we're starting to look at this and think about this, they're here because they're hopefully trying to invest, but how do we give that safety net? How do we, when we look at C and that co-invest, what are they truly going to gain out of coming to these? And I think we have to keep that in perspective. One of the things that I challenged the group is we were talking to an employer, and they had 300 unfilled positions, and we tend to ask the question, do you offer internships? And they say yes. And then the next follow-up question I hope we ask is, well, how many? Well, we have 4. Well, you may not be able to fill all 300 positions with 4 internships. We may not get a big movement and excitement out of that population base. So we were talking about some of these type of things. I'm a huge apprenticeship model type person. And now for that employer to be able to say, hey, could you use a Donald Trump thing here, what if we got you 8 or 9 students? We're going to put them on our insurance. We're going to be doing those type of things. They're going to go into your shop. They're going to take these skills. They're going to have some base set knowledge. But you're going to have a year-long interview process. And on the exit side of it, you pick the best one. And then the other 7 students are going to have a really good idea if they want to be in this career. Which areas do they need to change and which areas do they need to keep going? Because I think a lot of times we think we're done with this class, now we can move on. But if that employer didn't want to hire them at the end of the day, some of those segments they didn't have in that rubric. And then Paul had something.
And we kind of discussed what were some of the things missing, and we came up with the thing everybody talks about, critical thinking, problem solving, the ability to work independently. And that led directly into B, like the type of classroom assignments that kids get. And if you'll, as I told Clint, if you'll pardon the parallel with like popular culture, but the cooking challenge shows like Cutthroat Kitchen, where they're given a task, make eggs Benedict with one arm tied behind your back, with no eggs. That I mean, you laugh and it's fun to watch, but it promotes critical thinking and problem solving. How do I take this paradigm, how do I work with this paradigm and solve it with limited resources or with a handicap? Kids need to experience that in the classroom. We were talking about welding. They need to be able to go to a booth and build this apparatus only using round stock, or hanger welding instead of wire feed or TIG welding. And it would really promote that sense of the problem solving, being able to attack something and know a process, know a paradigm, but then be able to work with different materials or different tool sets to be able to achieve a result.
Thank you.
So much of what we talked about, similar to what's been mentioned, we in the first section, one of the main CTE programs we identified that could need some work and may not be relevant is business programs in general. We talked about having flexible course names so that courses could be taught to the trends or softwares that are being updated on a regular basis. Talked about infusing soft skills, so a lot of that same idea of having well-rounded individuals in working environments, and infusing real-world situations into CTE. So much of what they were saying, one of the examples that came up at our table was internet digital marketing program that was an assignment was to partner with a local business and do a social media campaign for local businesses, and in part they would get credits, so kind of infusing real-world situations into the curriculum. And in terms of how to engage industry to co-invest in CTE development, we talked a lot about inviting industry into the classroom, evaluating curriculum on a regular basis, encouraging access to the latest technologies outside the classroom, and encouraging industry to invest in technology.
Great, thank you.
First of all, our table name is Older Than Dirt. It's after a professor, yeah. So basically, I'm working with Clint on the Farm of the Future. So this is new ideas that aren't existing already, because I think Clint's program is great and we utilize it quite a bit. So the ideas that we came up with were, number one, and probably most importantly, is some sort of senior care, at-home care, so that older people don't have to go to a home or a hospital. Maybe that's a progressive sort of state certification, and apparently Lori said that there's already a program called DSP, Direct Support Professional, and so they can get a certification, and part of it may be the structure that Ag for Hire program yesterday, that the direct from farmer to laborer, to be able for a family to contract directly with a DSP, so that there's higher pay available for those positions. It's more of a long-term, permanent sort of thing. And training for educators, teacher shortages, et cetera, to get people into anywhere from preschool through college. So depending on their level of certification, they could even be substitute teachers, right? And then the third area was basically laboratory and services, familiarity with chemistry and biology, and actually working in a laboratory, what the protocols are. And there's a whole range of jobs there in terms of food safety, quality control, food processing, renewable energy for us, that sort of thing. In terms of question B, what can be done, there need to be long-term jobs available, just not temporary jobs or seasonal jobs. For instance, the healthcare worker, if it's only 4 months at a time and then they're off for 4 months, that's not much of a career. So there has to be something done, to make it a long-term career choice, so that it's worthwhile going through the certification, maybe, sort of as a paraprofessional, to upgrade the training so that they're more valuable and can work longer in a particular situation. Internships, I think that's a great program, and there isn't always a certification, like for renewable energy. It's very job specific, but there are general characteristics, industrial training or lab safety or business, and then they can come in and do an internship and learn the specifics. Getting industry involved in the classroom, to do guest lectures or guest appearances, basically to inform students about possible careers. They come in. What was the example that you gave? Right. So break out of the conventional thinking and actually see what's available out there, and then they come back to class motivated because they have a vision as to what they want to be when they grow up. I still haven't figured it out. There you go. Let's see. One of the ideas that I had is already occurring. Apparently, there's a career cafe, basically where people from industry can come in and do a recording and about what it is that they do and what their industry is, and then it's available online. So I think that should be expanded, and just better communication overall between industry. This conference is a wonderful example of that, is to get industry and educators, involved in, what are the needs and what are the capabilities and what can be done. So
Thank you.
that's it for Older Than Dirt.
Thank you.
I'm the substitute for Sal here. So. For our group, we talked about a few things when it came to the industry itself, and that was in our area, maintenance mechanic, of course, is one that always keeps coming up, electrical, welding, and Sal brought in from his area stating that a lot of the healthcare, but it's the lower level healthcare. So the CNA, as the baby boomers are getting older, then the home care is coming in. And so that demand just seems to be increasing, so many folds. And I know that personally because I have 2 daughters now doing the same thing, part-time. So those types of things, along with transportation, logistics, all those were discussed. Now for B, what can be done for the students? I think a lot of the problems start off with wages, in that a lot of the jobs that used to previously get paid $14, $15 an hour are now what? They're at minimum wage. A lot of those lower level jobs are actually decreasing in wages instead of increasing. So those with education are increasing, with certifications are increasing, but a lot of those general labor jobs, are actually falling. So the apprenticeships, internships, externships, more collaboration we talked about with the adult ed, group, and now that AEBG is out there, there's a lot of room to really expand on what we do together with them. Build true pathways. Why, as community colleges, are we trying to offer all of those, lower level classes? Let's spread that out so that there's, a little bit more of a pathway, if you will, stair step. So, and then to engage the industry, I wrote down that we needed to develop a model more so that it really engages users, but it has to be in a real easy format. So maybe something in an app format where you could really engage a lot more people in a real easy fashion. So it doesn't matter if they're in the store, if they're at the, buying tools, if they're on the tractor, wherever the case may be, but it's easy to engage multiple, people. So multiple industries, those kind of things. I'm not sure really. So.
All set?
Anything to add? No? That's it?
Okay, I appreciate that, so keep putting your ideas down. Yes. Yes.
I'm sorry, that was my fault.
I'm coming at it from a little different perspective. We are an employer. We're not from an academician perspective. We create software for the colleges and university marketplace, and we cannot find qualified developers. I constantly have openings, and the most qualified candidates are coming from India right now. And because we primarily focus on the American marketplace, though we do work in Canada and Australia, what we're finding that the Indians they come with a different culture. Their education system is completely different than ours. They don't understand what the processes are in the United States educational system at the higher education level. So we are in a fix. You know, we don't know how to find the folks that we need to have. And when we talk about wages, I mean, somebody coming right out of college, we're paying them $50,000 to $60,000 to start, and they don't know anything. I mean, we spend a year training them before they can actually become productive. So from our perspective, you know, this is a real problem as an employer.
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for being here, and I have the question, are you looking for people who are coming into your jobs out of a community college or out of a university? Because in terms of what you're looking for, do we need to be preparing people for transfer to get the skills that you want, or are you looking for us at our level to prepare people to get into jobs in your field?
On my development team, I would say that my two youngest and best developers have no college experience. So, you know, when we look at a resume, you know, that's just sort of a first cut at it. We bring them in and give them a test, you know, sort of a competency skill test. And based on how they do there, that's whether or not we hire them. So I don't even care if they have a degree, as long as they can handle it.
So I want to follow up on that too. So in your perspective, and especially in looking at in question C and in adapting it to however you want it to stay, but how best can we, the community college partners, adult ed, K-12, engage with what you're looking for or in your industry?
Well, I really like that Master Chef experience. I have 3 daughters, and they all watch something called Tim Gunn. I don't know the name of the show. It's something about creating outfits. But what is it? That's it, Project Runway. And so whatever night that comes on, I'm usually doing something else. But anyway, they, I mean, what we look for is we look for somebody who has critical thinking, you know, who can look at a problem and can solve it just, you know, with Eggs Benedict with their hands behind their back. You know, we have other problems, you know, what's the interoperability with different systems, you know, what if I can't get the data that I need, you know, how do I extrapolate? And those types of skills are ones that really differentiate the good programmers from the rest of the group.
Thank you. I had another question for you. In addition to developers, are you also looking for systems analysts, technical writers, those? Okay.
Okay, I want to open up for more comments or questions too, please.
Part of what Clint and I were talking about is that concept in the C question about co-investing. And really for the playing field to be level and to be co-investing, both parties have to be at risk in a way. Mm-hmm. You know, and to use the analogy Clint and I came up with, if Donald Trump and I were going to invest in something and he gave $1,000 and I gave $1,000, his level of risk and exposure is non-existent, whereas mine might be significant. So when we talk about industry investing or co-investing with colleges in CTE development, there needs to be a way to level that playing field so industry doesn't feel like they're taking all the risks and the college is working with a net. I don't know if that means extending a net to industry in some way. I don't know if that means taking away a net from the college in some way, but that concept, if it's not just a cute buzzword, that concept of co-investing means both parties are risking something and hoping that there's a payback.
You had me thinking about pathway development. I'm from the County Office of Ed. I work a lot with K-12s. We have a lot of linked learning academies that are in development, and one of the struggles we come up with specific to software development energy and utilities, and some of these sectors, or some of these pathway disciplines rather, that may not be prevalent in our Central Valley area, arts and entertainment as another example. We have a hard time connecting with industry to create those connections to the student experience. So it's almost as if the gap begets a gap, because there is not access to folks in the industry for these students to connect with, learn from, and have the project runway or master chef experience. It creates a bigger gap because we can't provide that real world experience, so it leaves them to go out and try and find those things alone. So we have a software development Link Learning Academy in Visalia, and we have a heck of a time trying to find software developers that they can learn from, work with, intern with, job shadow, etc., because there is not a lot of that industry, and it falls to the teacher to make those connections. So, and that requires zero financial investment, rather a time investment from industry is really what we look for. But the earlier we can get students engaged in those STEM careers, the more likely they are to go into those once they matriculate into whatever their post-secondary options are.
Just from an industry viewpoint, the on-the-job training program has worked out really well for us. We hired one guy out of West Hills, out of Clint's program, another guy that hadn't been through a program out of Huron, and a Fresno State graduate for the laboratory. But you know, the on-the-job training was that 50-50 risk-taking, sort of give these guys a chance for 6 months, train them in the specifics of our particular program, see if they get along, if the chemistry is right, et cetera. So that's been a very good program for us.
So outside of personal relationships that you built with the instructors of the programs, what were some of your biggest concerns before you started that program?
That people would show up on time and follow instructions and have critical thinking skills. You know, those are the basics, and we weren't sure that we were going to get that, and after a year now into the program, they're getting it. So, and we're about to expand, so we want to do more of the on-the-job training and bring more people in. So that's worked out well for us.
Okay.
So.
We have time for one more comment or question. Anybody else have anything? Okay. Well, I really appreciate, on behalf of the Central Mother Lode Regional Consortium, just your inputs, that we can help take this and share with our CTE deans, who are our steering committee, and they can help share this out to their campuses and colleges as they work on plans, local and regional plans, to help address that more and better CTE and be responsive to our industry needs. So thank you, and please continue with partnerships, and as things come up, you seek them out, or vice versa, so we can continue to build on this collaboration. Thank you.